What's up guys, welcome back to my channel for another Hot Toys 1/6 scale posing showcase, this time featuring the Iron Man Mark 6 2.0. Now, as I'm still awaiting the arrival of the gantry, I thought I'd do a showcase just focusing on posing the figure. The Mark 6 is a fantastic looking armor and got a good amount of screen time starting from the final battle in Iron Man 2 and carrying over up to the final battle in the Avengers. This was the first suit with the V-shaped panel exposing the arc reactor on his chest and was the first suit powered by the new element Tony discovers in Iron Man 2. Now, as this is the first time I've had the Mark 6 in the collection, I couldn't help myself and I just had to have some fun posing him up and getting some shots to see what he could do. But before we get started, if you like my content, do me a favor, hit that like button, notification bell and subscribe to the channel. Now let's get to it. Pose number 1. A walking pose, and for this one I wanted to showcase a way you can have him displayed in movement whilst using the standard base and crotch holder, keeping the figure safe, as I know concerns for figures falling in the display is something we should all consider when doing up our poses. I find walking poses fun to try and recreate. If done right, they can really bring a figure to life. Plus, the beauty of them is you can do so many different variations, especially if the character you're using has a particular cadence. Now, when attempting a walking pose, things to be sure of and things to tweak are all areas, from the hips to the shoulders, as not everything is in straight lines when you're walking. Slight tweaks and angles can really change the overall look for a pose like this. Lastly, be aware that not all angles may look appealing, so when you're creating a walking pose, be mindful of where the figure will fit in the display and what angle you'll be seeing it from the majority of the time. Pose number 2, and for this one we get down low and really make use of the posability of these Iron Man figures. Now, my original idea for this one was to convey him in mid-battle, in motion, using the metal beam to steady himself as he clenches his fist about to go up and kick some ass. The Mark 6 got a lot of fight action in both films he's in, and the figure definitely has great posability. The option to be able to drop the legs down from the hips is also what you need to do to be able to achieve a pose like this without having the legs crash into the hips. Now, when creating action type poses like this one, don't rule out using props and accessories to help you get there either. For this one, by using the beam, it allows me to get a completely different look than if I didn't have it there to support him. Pose number 3, and for this one I'm keeping him low again as I continue to experiment with the fantastic leg mobility. This time I have him in battle using his repulsor with the right hand and steadying himself with the left hand. This pose compared to the last one is much more sturdy and doesn't need any help to keep him balanced. You know, one of the reasons I enjoy doing poses like this is because when it comes to creating a display, being able to have figures low down allows you to create more layers on the shelf, thus allowing you to add more figures into the same display and not have them overcrowding each other as much. Another cool thing is you don't need to use a stand or a base to secure them most of the time like this, so that also frees up space on the shelf as well. Pose number 4. Continuing the repulsor pose trend, I have him back up on his feet this time with no stand, but you can also do this pose on a standard base for extra support if you wish. For this one, I really wanted to focus on getting the viewing angle locked in, as it's not a pose you want to see exactly straight on. You want him on an angle as he's facing you, and for a more classic Iron Man repulsor pose this time, I have both hands up like he's ready to blast with both. One thing I've learned over the years posing Iron Man as well is when you're doing a pose like this, you have to angle the shoulder armor correctly so it keeps him looking bulky up top. When you move his arms forward, the shoulder armors tend to go backwards, making his shoulder size disappear. But never fear, you can fix that by tweaking the shoulder armor as you twist the arms to keep the shoulder plates up top looking more accurate, I think. I think that personally elevates a pose like this instantly. Pose number 5. And for this one, I've gone and switched out the clean faceplate and chest armor for the battle damage pieces, which are to represent his look from the end of Iron Man 2 after fighting Whiplash. I've also switched out all the forearm pieces for the weapon attachments and added the missile launchers on the traps as well for a full battle damaged and weaponized look. I really dig this look. In hand, there's so much detail and intricate moving pieces, especially on the upper body. It really does give you lots of display options. This is actually why I got a second coming with the gantry, as I do want to display him from the end of Iron Man 2 and then him in the gantry representing the Avengers film. Oh, and by the way, I actually used the batteries on this one, but by the end of shooting this pose, the batteries were all pretty much dead. That's why I just add the lights in the post after photography. Pose number 6. We have Iron Man with his arms out at his sides, taking on enemies from all angles. This is a safe pose that you can do with him in your display that showcases all the cool weapons he has, but I do think it's missing something. And I think that's Rhodey. I think if I had War Machine Mark 1 from Iron Man 2, I'd pose them up back to back or side to side more so we could see them both properly together in battle. I may just have to do that, so stay tuned. If you're worried about the arms being out like this and possibly drooping or loosening over time, I think it's fair to worry. However, I have done it with a few of my Iron Man figures before and I haven't noticed anything significant. I'd say just something to be aware of, so what I'd recommend is just don't leave them in a pose like this for too long. Switch it up to something else after a while. Now if you're just doing it for photography, no issues. The joints are pretty stiff these days on these guys. Pose number 7, and for this one I wanted to play around with a really dynamic look, which generally means you'll need a base and a stand most likely for support. So for this, I have him on the rock base that comes with the Hot Toys Optimus Prime figure, which is the same exact base that comes with the Hot Toys Iron Man Mark 46, but I'm currently using that for something else. Now, as I don't generally like seeing a stand or grabber in my display as it breaks the realism for me, when making a pose where I'm using one, I usually try to find a way to hide the support as best I can. Now, that can sometimes be a burden, as the mere fact of trying to hide the support can change the angle up and change how I initially intended the pose to go. For this one though, I got lucky and it was actually pretty easy to get in balance like this. Pose number 8. Moving on to a flying pose now. Unfortunately, his normal hexagon base doesn't come with a flight pole, so you'll need to use another base if you want to create a flight pose. Or actually, you just need to switch out the crotch holder for the flight pole with the correct attachment for the base and you should be good to go. But for me, for this one, I'm using the base that comes with the Iron Man Mark 45 from Avengers Age of Ultron, as I'm a fan of diorama style bases. I especially like using them to create scenes for photography. I actually really like this guy in a flight pose too. If you've got an Iron Man figure, a flight pose is always a great fun way to display them, and I think the Mark 6 was born to fly, baby. I very rarely open up the flaps on the back of the Iron Man figures either, but for a pose like this, I think it works having them out as if they're stabilizing him. It's a fun feature and adds to great detail of these figures. Pose number 9. And for this one, I wanted to try something different and have him in a pose showing how well these guys can balance. I don't have any support here and he's literally balancing on his own, stepping up. I thought we've already covered some poses of him attacking and being strong, so for this one I thought let's have him hurt after taking damage but still in the fight, stepping up, ready for more. I like trying to capture not so typical poses sometimes, especially if I'm creating a display with multiple figures, and I encourage you to do that too. It doesn't always work, but sometimes you may capture something really cool and display an emotion or a scene not expected. As for this attempt, I'll let you be the judge of that. And lastly, pose number 10. Simply Tony standing there, holding his helmet with a bit of a smirk. I will dive into this sculpt more when I get my other one with the gantry, because I have some ideas on how to display him with the sculpt in the gantry that I want to play around with. But here it is, the controversial Tony Stark head sculpt. This is a strange one, so bear with me. After playing around with it for a bit, I'm finding myself conflicted. When you get in close, I feel like the sculpt is too old looking for Tony at this point, and it's like the details and the wrinkles are too sharp and pronounced. And using just my phone camera here, I found it hard to film to my liking, so I'll agree that the sculpt looks off from a lot of angles and too old looking, so there's that. However, after the fact and sitting back recording this at my desk, I'm looking at him on the shelf under the Moducase case lights, and from my normal viewing point I see Tony clear as day. It's like it was made to look better from a distance on the shelf in person, because where I am in my collection room, the wrinkles aren't as prominent and the sculpt to me looks really good, but for some reason I can't capture it on camera. It's crazy. If anyone else has noticed this, let me know. I want to know if it's just me. And that's it, guys and girls. I hope you've enjoyed this pose session and maybe got some inspiration for your own displays. Stay tuned for more Mark 6 action when I get the gantry in for this guy. I thank you all for tuning in, and if you haven't already done so, do us a favor and hit that like button, notification bell, and subscribe to the channel. And if you'd like to support the channel, consider becoming a member and joining the Iron Legion. But for now, until next time, I'm out.